Are you a gig worker or self-employed? Womply has helped over 100,000 small businesses get a PPP stimulus loan and proudly serves more than 600,000 small businesses across America. Millions of self-employed workers may qualify for up to $41,000 in 100% forgivable loans. So apply today. The program ends soon and funds are limited. Apply now at womply.com/apply and see if you qualify for a PPP loan. Womply.com/apply. That's WOMPLY.com/apply.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hychak. Hey guys, welcome to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hychak. Doug, how you doing? You surviving?
I'm surviving.
30 below this morning. 30 below zero.
Yep. I gotta go outside and get the mail. That's a big deal.
When it's 30 below, it's a big deal.
It's a big
Freeze.
deal.
Is that the highlight of your day, is the mail?
I don't know if I have a highlight because I work so many hours.
Yeah.
I get confused. There is no highlight.
You get confused. Do you ever work so much wondering what day it is? Like you're in the caught in a time warp?
But then some days I even skip going to bed.
You so just all night. So
then I really get confused.
How do you maintain the schedule without just falling on your face of exhaustion?
The way I was born, energy.
Just go.
I think I actually do attribute it to adrenaline. People think, oh, he's doing no. Yeah. Just adrenaline. If you're excited about what you do, what you research, what you're making, there's a lot of adrenaline that goes with that. There is.
Of course, when you're creating, when you're passionate about what you're doing, it's not so bad.
The other thing, Joel, is I switch gears from one topic to another so quick that
I know you do
each other. So it just kind of keeps giving you these shots of adrenaline, like, oh my God, now I gotta deal with this deal, which has nothing to do with that deal.
Right. Yeah, getting the same things going on radio-wise.
Yes.
Just you get so many projects going at one time, and it's just not enough hours in the day.
Right. I was just dealing with in a genetic meeting.
A genetic meeting?
Yes, genetics.
Wow. The only thing I did today was work, and then took in a bunch of auditions from podcasts that want to make the radio cut, trying to get on the bigger stage, and gonna have to listen to them and decide if they are worthy of making the leap or if they need further development. So
no comment.
Those kinds of things going on in my life, but nothing as interesting as what you have going on. Mine's just radio.
Well, you are focused, aren't you?
I am. As focused as I can be.
Yeah, that's right. I can change that.
I'm kind of ADD.
I'll change it. I'll get you sucked in.
I don't want to see what happens is I catch myself going down rabbit holes sometimes too, though. And I don't want to do that. Like, I'll get hooked on a subject matter and I have to learn everything about it, right? Yep. Like, whether it's UFOs or aliens or Bigfoot or whatever, I get sucked in this rabbit hole. And as you know, when you start researching on the internet, one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Next thing you know, you've been reading for 4 days and you're still chasing that same rabbit down that hole. And so I try to avoid that now as best I can, but I still fall prey to it once in a while. So, what
happens? What happens to me is I get sucked into these projects. They're not just doing research, but they're projects.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of gets, it gets hard to say no when something's really cool.
Are you kind of like the Nicolas Cage of the paranormal? You just can't say no to a project?
It's hard. I just keep thinking, I'm like, here's me. Say no, please say no. And
right.
And then I go, sure.
Why not? We'll give that a try.
Sure. Let's build the highest. Let's build a balloon that can reach the highest altitude that's ever been achieved. Sure, let's do it.
Let's try it. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. So.
That whole thing. Well, it sounds like, Doug, you've been very busy. And so, anything new you can share with us that you're at liberty to share with us? Maybe some exciting news? I mean, if not, you can just say no.
I did get a letter from the network kind of apologizing for a delay on things they're sorting out.
Gotcha. So we may see some stuff in the future is what you're saying.
Yeah, just waiting for some legal things to be done.
That will be very, very cool. But in the meantime, we got some news stories to get to. We got the strange one. Microsoft, here's a rabbit I was following down a hole. Microsoft patent shows plans to revive dead loved ones as chatbots. Now, Doug, how would you feel? For instance, both of us, neither one of us have fathers left. So that's we have something in common here.
Yes.
So how would you feel if a software company turned around and they said, Doug, we can make it as if you're talking to your father?
Creepy.
Would you want that? Or
well, I would if it was my father, but it wouldn't be.
No. It's not.
It's a simulation.
It's a simulation.
Yeah. No, thanks.
I find it very creepy. I find it kind of morbid. Like maybe you shouldn't tread in that area.
Yeah, if you were really into that and really liked it, I think there'd be a mental illness problem.
I think so. I think so. I think if you really liked it and you're really into it, and this is my opinion alone, you need to let go.
Oh yeah,
whoever you're missing. I mean, you need to get past that and maybe really do some soul searching on whether or not you're past that individual's death or not, and then go from there, because really it's just a quick fix to make you feel better about the loss that has happened, but it's still lost nonetheless. It's just synthetic now. Microsoft has been granted a patent that would allow the company to make a chatbot using the personal information of a deceased person. The patent describes creating a bot based on the image, voice data, social media posts, electronic messages, and more personal information. The specific person who the bot would become, would assume, and may correspond to past, present. It may be able to talk to you about the past, present, and give its thoughts on such things as politics and whatnot. He could talk to such as friends, relatives, acquaintances, and basically so you could talk to your loved one again in some capacity. But it's not really them. It's an algorithm that would scour the internet and social media and use all it could to render a personality of somebody that's dead.
Yep. Back in the, I would say probably early 80s, I created a program called Talk, which was basically exactly what they're talking about. I mean, you could carry on a pretty endless conversation with a computer. And back in those days, it was in basic language. Really? But I had fun because you could literally converse with this thing and it would never be the same. I tried to give it a personality.
It'd be really dynamic. It'd never say the same thing twice. It wouldn't get repetitive, is what you're saying.
No, and it would get to know you, and it was quite... Anyhow, so that was my concept long before I'd ever even heard the term artificial intelligence. And so I would imagine Microsoft is going to use AI to somehow, get it to learn more and more about your loved one, and then, it's going to ask you probably questions, but it's just, it's creepy. Yeah. What I developed it was the computer you were talking to wasn't a dead one.
Yeah, it wasn't like it was your dead father Harold coming through, and you're looking at him and talking with him and doing that whole stuff. So what you were doing is you were basically giving a personality to a computer.
Yes. And that wasn't creepy at all because I had it on my bar. I worked on it for 2 years, had it on my bar, and people would be fascinated.
What made you abandon the project?
Just boredom. I mean, it wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't going to sell it. It was just
It was just a novelty.
I did it to teach myself programming. Was a challenge, and the computers were new back then.
Yeah, but how long ago would you say this was?
It was about 1982, I believe.
Oh, so that was that far back.
Oh yeah.
Wow. So you were able to do that.
Yeah, 40 years
early
ago.
80s. So I mean, this really isn't new ideas or even really new anything. It's just an old idea coming back around to maybe make money. I'm sure they'd be selling this software. I'm sure that they would be trying to make a profit off of it. Clearly wouldn't be just for loved ones that are grieving over a dead one, a dead individual. So there's got to be a reason, a deeper reason. As we know, Microsoft's not about not making money. They're definitely about making money.
You know what bugs me too about companies like Microsoft is they try to think of every combination of any frickin' thing so they can get it patented, even though they're not working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? They're not really building.
Just to hold it there in case somebody else were to have the idea.
To me, that's anti-technology, and I just really get upset because
it kind of stunts the growth of innovation.
It does, because these patents sit there in limbo, and it just gives them power to sue people, even if they're doing something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyhow,
it's very Twilight Zone-y.
I used to do radio shows on patents, on why I was so against them. Anti-patent shows.
Yeah, well, it's kind of. How do I want to put this? It's just kind of wrong in a lot of ways to do that with a person that was once living. Now, I understand you doing what you did because it was not a living person. It was proving that computers could converse and you could program it. But in a way, it's kind of preying on those, again, like I was saying earlier, that just haven't gotten over their loved ones.
But the bigger picture is, to me, the patent that they're applying for, that they're not even going to come out with a product. They're not even working on it. That's the bigger picture. Because if you're a small company, Joel, let's say you get an idea for a new kind of, potato masher.
Well, it's interesting because now the plot thickens because in October 2020, Kanye West, I'm sure you're familiar with him, the rapper.
Right.
Bought Kim Kardashian West a hologram of her late father using this program, Robert Kardashian, to celebrate her 40th birthday.
Is it a Microsoft product?
That's what it says, that he utilized this through Microsoft to make a perfect representation of her father in a hologram, as if he were sitting in front of her.
Okay. And where did you hear this?
It's in the same article, and plus I did some checking. He actually did do that. Okay. He paid $3 million to make it happen.
Oh, yeah, sure. For $3 million, we can do all sorts. As you know, I'm holograms, and I'm into augmented reality holograms. And I created the first interactive we believe it's the first time anybody's created an interactive hologram.
That is creepy. That is so creepy to do that. But yes, holograms are cool. And remember, I mean, they're doing musicians now on stage, dead musicians with holograms.
Right,
you can sit through a John Lennon concert now.
I was going to finish my thought. You won't let me finish my...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
My dumb thought. Okay, so let's say you invent a potato masher. And, and if you're not rich and you go get a patent on this new potato masher, you're going to spend all your capital getting the patent on this potato masher. And they may turn you down after you spend 70, 80, gosh, who knows how much. Then all that really does is give you the right to sue somebody if they come out with the same potato masher. and they're going to bleed you dry, and you're going to have any money for marketing.
Wow, I never thought about that. The huge expense.
But then
in patenting.
Well, here's the thing. So big companies, they just go, let's say they're a big company that do potato mashers. My God, they're applying for patents for artificial intelligence potato mashers and this. Every combination of, they don't even exist. So anyhow, I've said my piece. Sorry.
No, not a problem. Well, tonight, I suppose I should tell everybody before we move on to the story, we've got a great guest on tap tonight. We have Preston Dennett on tonight. And we're going to be talking about UFOs. We're going to talk a little bit of everything because he is truly a Renaissance investigator. Kind of covers it all. Mm-hmm. And he is one of the investigators for MUFON as well. So that's a big feather in the cap. He's been at it since the early 80s. Kind of seen everything, been everywhere, interviewed hundreds of witnesses. And he's nowhere near done. He has also authored 27 books. You're going to sit around, hang around. He'll be here... Oh, we're hoping a little bit after the bottom of the hour. There's a little bit of a scheduling thing going on, so we're going to get him on, though. And I'd like to get his take on some of this stuff that's going on in the next article that we're going to be talking about. The next article is even a little bit weirder. You ready? It involves your favorite guy, or I shouldn't say your favorite guy, but everybody's favorite billionaire entrepreneur, Robert Bigelow. We know who that is, right, Doug?
Yes, we do.
He bought Skinwalker Ranch. He's kind of big in the UFO research project field. Anyhow, is there credible evidence to support the existence of the afterlife? Doug, I've never asked you directly. Do you believe in an afterlife?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. A Las Vegas businessman, Robert Bigelow, will spend $1 million to find out. So Bigelow, known for his funding of UFO research projects, has launched a new project. Today, the Bigelow Institute for Conscientious Studies, sorry, there we go. Kind of a weird font there, is in yellow. Announced a global essay contest. The BICS is seeking input from scientists, religious scholars, and researchers, and anyone else who can provide evidence for life after death. Now you can win yourself. There's going to be 3 different tiers. There's going to be a $500,000 tier. There's a $300,000 tier and a $150,000 tier. These are for the different places. First place get the $500,000. Second place, the top essay, will get $300,000, and then of course coming in at third place will be $150,000. The Bigelow Institute for the Conscientious Studies was formed to try to conduct research and facilitate the research into the possibility of survival of human consciousness beyond the body. Bigelow told Mystery Wire in an exclusive interview, and if this is true, he says, then to explore what comes next or the other side is very exciting. He firmly believes, Bigelow, that there is something after this. He points to hundreds and thousands of people experiencing paranormal incidences in their lives. In this excerpt from the Worldwide Range interview, Bigelow shared more about the mission and the rules of the contest. They will be coming here in the next coming months. But if you think you have what it takes and you think that you have the evidence to prove life after death, you could definitely get a hold of the Bigelow Institute, and they will tell you how to enter. So there's that. I'm kind of surprised he's getting into that, to be honest.
Yeah, you wonder, did he get bored with UFOs?
Right. Or maybe he's aging, right? Hear me out on this. Maybe he's aging, and he's worried that there's nothing after this, like a lot of us.
I gotcha. So he's taking a personal interest because he's gonna die.
Yeah. I'm afraid of death. Heck, I don't want that to come. What's next?
We hope, but we don't really know.
No, we don't really know.
The other thing, we don't know if it hurts going down the chute.
Now, I have talked to a lot of people that have had NDEs. In fact, I did a 2-year-long radio show about it. Nothing but NDEs. People that had NDEs.
Yep.
Very few of them said it actually hurt to die.
Yeah.
In fact, almost all of them said it was extremely easy. There was no effort in it. That it was just you're there 1 second. Yeah.
Have you ever had an out-of-body type experience or some type experience?
I think so. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I remember watching TV. Obviously, I was kind of in a trance watching this TV, which was the goal, why your parents put you in front of the TV to begin with, to put you in a trance.
That's right. Good parenting right there.
Yeah.
That's what my parents did too.
But I remember looking at the TV, and then all of a sudden I remember my body feeling really heavy. Like heavy, like 1,000 pounds. And then I remember looking as if I was 1 inch from the TV screen.
Mm-hmm.
You could see all the, the static and the dots on the TV screen, whatever they were called back then. And then I got scared, and I was back, and everything was normal. And I was like, God, did I have some kind of out of body? Because how did I get that close to the TV set to see the detail? So then I remember I wasn't a dumb kid. I walked up to the TV and I looked really close into it to see if I could see those same dots, and I could. And I was like, whoa, how did that happen? Even though, I'm 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
I was confused.
Wow. So you think that maybe you kind of left your body for a minute, got really close to TV, and then just kind of slingshotted back into your body.
Yep. And then it happened maybe 4 or 5 other times in my life. And every time I felt the weight of my real body right before you left.
Mm-hmm.
Feel this extreme amount of weight. And I used to, when I was young, like a little kid, I called it turning into the Rock Man, because I felt so heavy right before I would leave.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was examining the dust in the screen after a Rockman experience, and I knew I was right up to the screen because I'd never looked at a screen up close, and I'm like 6 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm in my bedroom, and I'm supposed to be sleeping, but no, I'm looking at the screen. But right before that, I felt this heaviness come over me, and that must have been feeling your body's weight for the first time, right?
Almost like a shedding feeling, like you're shedding something.
Yeah, but you feel the weight right before it would happen. Now, I don't know if it's out of body. I don't know. I'm just relaying what my, how I interpreted what I was feeling. But then it happened as an adult a couple of times. Same exact thing. And I remember when first time it happened as an adult, I'm going, oh, I remember when this would happen to me when I was young. But now I'm smarter, so I'm just going to let it go, right? I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to try to go through the window or whatever. And so sure as heck, here I am up to the screen again on the window, right up to the window, looking at the dust in the screen.
Do you remember what triggered it, though? I mean, was there something that happened, just spontaneous?
It was spontaneous. I wasn't meditating. I must have just been in a certain mood, a certain zone, focused on something. Maybe I was trying to solve a problem. But it was involuntary from a point. But I do remember when all of a sudden I started feeling this very bizarre, heavy feelings like, okay, just let it go, let it go, let it go. And I did. And then I got scared again, even as an adult, like I couldn't get back. And then, boom, you're right back. Yep.
When's the last time it happened? Would you 30s, 40s, 20s? What age were you?
Probably happened back in the early 80s. It was the last. It hasn't happened since.
Yes, you would have been, what, in your 30s? Somewhere in there?
20s.
20s. Sorry, I'm aging you prematurely, aren't I? Yeah. You're not the only one to talk about that, though. When I used to do radio shows dedicated to it, some people would. One guy was talking about he had one while he's driving down the highway. I mean, he just quickly, like
that's not a good place.
Just in and out, like a yo-yo almost. Like there it was, and then right back. And then there's.
Did anybody explain? Did anybody tell you they felt heavy? I've never heard that before.
A couple did. One gal, she was having I think she was having some heart issues. And they had her on the table and they're working on her. And of course, the classic rise above the body and see what's going on. And she had mentioned, and a couple others had mentioned this extreme way, almost like you're leaving a pool, like you've been underwater and you're trying to rise up out of the water. And then you got all that weight of the water in your body as you're kind of just breaking the surface. Okay. And that's how they would describe it, was kind of like feeling.
I can only describe it as feeling like your body weighs thousands of pounds,
mm-hmm.
which you would think about it, it probably would. I mean, it would be very heavy.
Well, if your soul weighs, I mean, think about this though, Doug. Your soul weighs probably, if it weighs at all, hardly anything, right? I mean, light as a feather kind of thing going on. And you're shedding all that weight and you're rising. Yeah, it'd stand to reason you would have some resistance.
Yeah,
going through all that.
That's my experience, and I would kind of like it to happen, as I got older. Excuse me, but it has not. It just has not.
Mm-hmm.
But if it does, once again, I'll try to get the courage to just let it, because they claim that you're connected by some kind of thread that you can always get back.
Yeah, some type of tether, some type of spiritual tether.
Yep.
I sure hope that's true, because I don't want to be the guy that's tetherless. And there I am, just kind of floating around,
But it's kind of weird because you are, and I've never looked back at my body, right, in any of those experiences, just looking forward, trying to find a way out of the room. But to be able to visually see, the details of a TV screen or the dust on a window, I mean, you can't explain that any other way.
No, there has to be some type of, at the very least, some type of spiritual teleportation happening.
Well, what was comforting is I at least knew I could see after I was dead.
Mm-hmm. That it kind of is comforting.
Yeah.
When you think about it, I mean, because a lot of us
talks about that.
No one does.
Yeah, but they talk about, are they seeing with their eyes? Are they seeing with their soul? Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, how are you perceiving what's in front of you visually? If you don't have eyes anymore.
Regular vision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. Another topic I find fascinating, though, going a step further, is like reincarnation. I mean, there is some pretty compelling evidence.
Oh, there is.
For that.
Yep.
That you can look up and it's whoa, what the hell? So
there's a couple of documentaries where they've taken these kids that just out of the blue say, oh, by the way, I used to have this kind of dog and I had a sister named this and a mother was named this. I lived by an airport and I lived here and and they just kind of remember everything.
Yeah.
And then they try to find where it is. They narrow it and they'll go there and the kid will know everything about the house.
Yeah.
They'll go there and it's very compelling.
I'm talking to a few people that believe that they're reincarnated. And a couple parents that had children that they believed were reincarnated children. One of them, she believed that her child was the builder of the Titanic.
Oh.
Because at 3, he knew everything about it. Yeah. Like, he knew the plans. He knew the lengths of things. He knew that one of the stacks was a dummy stack. That didn't have smoke coming out of it. It's just little things that a 3-year-old shouldn't know. That would take quite a bit to know that. And evidently this is before the internet, according to her. So it wasn't like you just look it up online and go,
You can't explain, just a young child born who is an expert on airplanes. Just doesn't happen.
Yeah, how do you explain that away? You just can't. It warrants further research, is what I say.
The thing is, there'll never be enough evidence for it to be accepted by everybody. Never.
No, but I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about me accepting it. Evidence for me kind of thing. And I don't know, you're kind of the same way. Evidence that compels me to believe this is true.
Yeah. I've seen evidence firsthand. I've watched a pattern too. When somebody seems to die in the family, there's always somebody's like, oh, so-and-so's pregnant.
Mm-hmm. There seems to be a replacement.
Yeah, or sometimes I'll hear so-and-so's pregnant, and I'll think, oh, God, there's going to be a death very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. There does seem to be checks and balances. You know, like, to add, you got to take away a little bit.
No, I don't mean that. I mean that soul is going to go into the new baby. They're going to.
Yeah.
I think we're linked by DNA.
Yeah.
Just linked by.
I think so. I think you're onto something there. That there's some type of. Have you ever heard of the term genetic memory?
Yes, I have.
And I do apologize for any noise you might be hearing in the background. My studio door is open, so I will take care of that right now. Thank you. Okay. Anyhow, genetic memory. You've heard of that, right? Like people remember doing this and doing that. I was doing some studying on that, and there was these mountain climbers, these people that were in the Himalayas, and they had no idea. They've never been.
Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Bears beats The Office on Peacock. Stream every moment from Dunder Mifflin and explore bonus extras and exclusives. Plus, if you're looking for more classic hits, you can stream every episode of Parks and Recreation, 2.5 Men, and every season of SNL. In the mood for something brand new? Check out Peacock's original comedies, The Amber Ruffin Show, and Saved by the Bell. Whether you're craving a new binge or familiar fave, you can find tons of comedy hits on Peacock. Get started for free at peacocktv.com.
You went online to switch your car insurance to Progressive so you could save money. But then you saw a friend request from an old summer camp buddy. And now here you are, clicking through photos of his kickball team from 2011. Looks like they won the championship that year. Then he moved to Tulsa. Oh, a new tattoo. Yes, they said it was easy to save hundreds on car insurance with Progressive, but they forgot about the rest of the internet. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. National average savings by new customer surveyed who saved in 2019.
They were the Sherpas for Everest, okay? And they have never been, they're brand new. They had never been up Everest, the Sherpas. But they knew the way up there. It was almost as if they could visualize in their own minds, but they've never been up there. They've never read a map to it because they couldn't understand the language. But somehow it was almost genetically inclined to know where to go up this mountain because their ancestors had done it so many times.
Yeah, or you could explain that by reincarnation too.
Mm-hmm. That's true too. That is very true. That is very true. Hey, we got something cool going on here this weekend coming up in Minnesota. This is where Doug and I both reside. We have the John Bear Grease dog sled race coming up.
Oh my gosh.
I just had to throw that out there because I know that they're kind of hurting because of COVID. Yep. They want more attendance, or at least it's also virtual. So if you are interested in dog sledding at all, or that's an interest that you might have, you can pop on over to johnbeargrease.com and you can see the racers, find out about stuff, and even attend if you want to. Very limited people can attend. But if you want to go there, but I did not realize that's 300 miles of dog sledding.
Crazy. Did I ever tell you my dog sledding story?
No.
It's a real quick one. So I got asked to go on this project where I was going to film a very famous musician up by the Painted Cliffs in the Quetico, right?
Okay. Yep.
And this was a music video. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I'll go. I've never ridden in a dog sled, and it sounds really cool. And this guy was really famous, and I was going with a Polar Explorer, and it was just kind of cool.
You had the whole thing going.
I had the whole thing, right? And I'm going, okay, great, to be great. So we go in for a quick consultation with the Polar Explorer on what we have to wear. He outfits us with the clothing, which is just polar fleece, and then you're naked underneath, right? That's it.
Oh.
That's all you can wear, because the whole key to staying warm is you can't sweat.
That is true. You're
That's
right.
The key. So you're going to wear this one thin layer of polar fleece. You're not going to wear a coat. You're not wearing pants, mucklucks, polar fleece. That's it. And I'm not even talking any thicker than your normal, like I think you're wearing a polar fleece.
Yeah, I'm wearing a sweatshirt that's polar fleece.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's it. And the guy's like, just believe me, just trust me, And this is in the dead of winter. It gets cold up in Ely.
It does.
So I get outfitted, and then sure heck, we're ready to go. I got my gear, I got my audio gear. And this is back when I smoked, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a long time ago. And so I'm I get all my video and audio gear. I mean, I still quite a bit of gear, tripods, you know. And we leave, and I'm getting ready to get on the dog sled, and they take off without me.
What?
And I'm like, what the heck? Well, maybe they're going to stop and they're going to switch, right?
Yeah.
So I just followed the dog. They didn't even say they were going to leave me. So I followed the dog.
You watched them go off in the distance. Just gone.
It's gone. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't so fun. So I get about maybe 4 or 5 miles through the snow, following the trail of the dog sled. And all of a sudden I realize I forgot my cigarettes.
Oh, no.
Carton of cigarettes. So I'm like, well, I'm out walking back. So I just keep on going. And so gets dark and I wander into I just keep following the dog sled tracks.
Yeah.
Get into camp. Everybody's in bed. And I'm like, where do I sleep?
Wait a minute. These people leave you. They don't say to themselves, hey, we might want to grab Doug on our way out of here.
Nope. So, by the way, just so you know, I'm carrying a video camera and a tripod.
You got gear. You got gear with you, too.
Sure. I've got 30, 40 pounds of gear with me.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And so I get into camp, and, of course, I'm like,
in your polar fleece? In your polar fleece?
I'm not going to crawl into somebody's tent.
Yeah.
So I just, there was a sleeping bag. They were nice enough to throw a sleeping bag there. So I unfurl my sleeping bag, and the dog sled was now empty. So I go in the dog sled, and I sleep in there. But he said, make sure you get naked before you get in your sleeping bag. So thinking, oh my God. It's now probably, pushing 15, 20 below.
Yeah.
And they were right. I was warm. I was fairly warm all day because I kept moving. And my mucklucks worked really well because your feet don't ever get, if anybody knows what real mucklucks, they don't compress.
No.
Any part of your foot, so your blood circulates. That's the key to staying warm. If you have like Sorels or boots like that, you're afraid of gonna freeze.
Yeah.
You don't get blood circulation. So mucklucks are lightweight. I mean, that was amazing. Feet weren't cold at all. So I listened to the expert. I got naked, got in my sleep bag. Oh, that was not fun. Don't ever do that. And it was stiff, it was icy, kind of stiff. And I got in there and I did eventually warm up. Woke up again. And this time I had breakfast because I was pretty hungry.
I would imagine you were. Did you yell at them the next morning? Did you be like, what the hell?
I had to let them know. And they're like, well, the dog sled's full of gear and stuff. And of course,
can't bring you with.
The musician got to ride in the dog sled.
Oh, sure.
And the Polar Explorer was on cross-country skis. But anyhow, it wasn't me. Anyhow, so I did this whole trip. I never once got to ride in the dog sled, except over one portage one time for a photo op with the musician. And that became the tourism photo for Ely for years.
Really?
Almost 15 years was my picture with the musician in the dog sled, riding in the dog sled. It was even hung. It was a giant photo of it in Wintergreen, if you know where Wintergreen store is.
Yep.
And it was on billboards and it was in the pamphlets. And I'm looking at that going, damn it. I never got to ride in the sled.
Here I never got to ride in the dog sled.
Here I am, cruising through,
boundary
walk the dogs. Anyhow.
Well, that's quite the adventure you had.
Yeah, but when I got back,
misadventure.
When I got back, I was in the best shape of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And
I bet you were.
Oh, I was. And I get in my car, start it up, and there's those damn carton of cigarettes sitting on the dash.
Did you quit after that? Was that the time
made
that
it
you
all
said
the way
enough?
to Virginia. No, I made it all the way to Virginia.
Really? That's a long way. Ely to Virginia, that's an hour 20-minute drive.
No, it's only 45 minutes or whatever, but 50 minutes. But whatever, I made it all the way there before I lit one up.
Wow. We got to run a break. We come back. We're going to see what's going on here, and we're going to be talking about other stuff, me and Doug, and hopefully we'll have a guest. You just never know what's going to happen on this crazy night. So we will be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Untold Radio. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is the prodigal son of Ely himself, Doug Hijack. Doug, we left off. You're telling us a story about dog sleds. You in the Great White North with nothing but a polar fleece, walking along. Yep. Just curious of why did they forget me? And oh yeah, don't worry, don't forget carrying about 40 pounds of gear.
Yes.
So you get back, you get in your sleeping bag, you're like, whoa, that was a hell of a day. And so that was not your only... you get back to your car. Now, that was not your only trip to Ely that was interesting, was it?
Oh, gosh, no. I could write a book on all the weird Ely stories, because every time you go there, there's so many cool, brilliant, eclectic people that are there that are eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Okay. I remember one time I brought a CBS correspondent up there, and he had never been there. And he was a, national, CBS, news type reporter. Then we go up there, and I said, dude, every time I come up here, something weird happens. It's just really, I try to explain it to him on the way up there. So we get up there. I'm not going to say whose cabin we went to. As we go into the cabin, there's a bunch of men in their long underwear. And I knew most of them, not all of them, but I actually knew most of them. And I said, hey, what are you doing, Bill? He goes, well, I'm working on a new lightweight building material. And he was in there doing this, and the next guy was doing this, and the next guy was doing that. And so we get back in the car, and we got to go to our hotel. And he goes, dang. That was the craziest group of guys I've ever met in my life, And he goes, you weren't joking. So every time you introduce people up there, too, they literally, it isn't just me. If you got your eyes open, you're going to have weird experiences.
Yeah.
I did a bear documentary up there with Dr. Lynn Rogers and the Man Who Walks with Bears that was narrated by Mark Hamill himself. And we had a premiere up in Ely at the Grand Ely Lodge.
Okay.
Right? Isn't that the name of it?
Yep, Grand Ely Lodge. Yeah, because they also had a State Theater there. I wasn't sure if they showed a State Theater or Grand Ely Lodge. I couldn't remember.
Right.
But I do remember that premiere happening because I was there.
Oh, are you really? You remember how busy it was there?
It was, because I was there covering it for WEBE-FM.
It was insane.
105.5.
There were people there. I couldn't comprehend. I mean, I remember, like, I'm getting introduced. Oh, this is the band Soul Asylum.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I looked, and the place was just huge. And somebody came up to me and said, this is the biggest event that's happened to Ely in many years. And I couldn't believe it. But anyhow, to me, I got to tell this story, though. So I bring my kids up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I won't mention what son, because I'll never hear the end of it if I do. Hopefully he never hears about this. So I bring my son up, and he wants to go swimming because it's before the premiere. It's like, in the afternoon.
Sure.
And I said, well, I said, we didn't bring any trunks. Do you have box?
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. The thing about the Home and Auto Bundle from Progressive is that by now you've heard a lot of ads about the Home and Auto Bundle from Progressive. We don't even need the words the Home and Auto Bundle anymore to tell you that you could save big with the ring-tailed lemur from Progressive, or that every hot peach cobbler comes with round-the-clock service and protection. And that's the thing about the goat with magic powers. You've heard a lot of ads about the sushi in Vancouver. See how much you could save with the Home and Auto with the Shaman in the Jungle from Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
He goes, yeah, I got boxers. I said, well, just wear those. So he's okay. So him and his other brother go swimming, and he's in his boxer. Or no, the other one wouldn't go. But Blaine goes, oh, I just said his name, damn it. He's swimming in his boxers in the pool, Joe. But I told Blaine before he did that, I said, no one will ever notice. They look like swimming trunks.
Right?
Like, wow, are you sure? And I'm like, yes. No one's going to know.
How old was Blaine at this time?
He must have.
Now you said his name. So
yeah, I screwed up. Probably 8 or 9.
So he was just a little guy.
He's a little guy. And I'm like, dude, nobody's going to know. He's like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, they will. I go, no, they won't. So anyhow, first thing that happens is there's a pretty well-known radio host that's at the pool too, and I don't even know he was even coming from Minneapolis. And the first thing is he goes, "Hey kid, are you swimming in your underwear?"
Are you swimming in your underwear, kid? Yeah. Well, that's a great story. Story.
I never heard the end of it. Well,
that is cool.
That radio host ended up, his kid got his finger caught in the elevator that night and lost part of his finger.
Oh my God.
In the elevator.
It was the curse.
Yeah, it was the curse.
It was the curse. Oh, well, man, what a story up there in Ely. Great place. If you've never been that far north.
No, but
you're coming to Minnesota, you need to stop in Ely.
Yeah, but then that same night, Joel, I talked another guy into giving the other radio host the local Ely radio station for free. And we were literally out there at the station that night. He was giving him
that night, keys passing hands, the whole thing. Just here you go.
Yeah,
you can have wheelie.
And I put that deal together in the bar.
WELY is the call letters to that station. Still going, by the way, to this day.
To this date, we don't know if it was a joke, if anybody was serious, but we actually went to the station, and the guy was giving him the keys. So
that's a crazy story, Doug. Ely Chronicles. That's what you should call the Ely Chronicles. So with us on the phone now, we have Preston Dennett with us, our guest. Preston, as I said earlier, is a very accomplished paranormal investigator, ufologist for MUFON. You don't get those every day of the week. And then we were so honored, and also accomplished author with several books under his belt. He is one of the foremost authorities on the paranormal. I would like to welcome Preston Dennett to the show. Preston, thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
So, how you been? I mean, what's going on in the world of Preston right now?
Oh, just trying to keep up with a quickly changing world, battling LA traffic, and made it home in time, so I'm happy.
Cool. We're glad you made it home in time, too, and you're safe and sound, it looks like. And, Preston, I've never had the honor of talking with you. I've read a few of your books over the years. Very interesting stuff. Really enjoy it. The paranormal has been long since been an obsession of mine. I've been a talk radio host for many years in the subject matter. But, you talk about in your bio, you've been at this since the, early 80s? Maybe longer than that? Were you always the kind of kid interested in it, or was it a later you were interested?
Oh, no, I did not like the paranormal. Was not interested. Even though when I was a kid around, 9, 10 years old, maybe 11 or 12, I did have a really powerful psychic experience, but kind of just laughed it off and was very skeptical until 1986, mid-November, a report comes on the news talking about this sighting, a UFO sighting over Alaska. I thought, no, don't believe this. This pilot has got to be lying. He's got to be misperceiving. And I remember my brother said he saw a UFO, and I didn't want to hear it back then, and I didn't really want to hear it at that point either, but I asked him. I made the mistake of asking him about it. He's like, oh, man, yeah, I was there with my friend Phil and Greg. You know them. I'm like, yeah. What'd you see? They were all in the car heading down Reseda Boulevard, and they saw this metallic disc. It had a little dome on top, colored lights, and it's darting around, stopping, hovering. It was pretty low, a couple 100 feet.
Yeah.
And they're following this thing, and other cars were chasing it too.
So it was being engaged. People were noticing it and taking note of this UFO. Other people.
Yeah. It wasn't just my brother. It was a crowd of people. I'm like, well, let me talk to Phil and Greg. Because I knew them. And they were really happy to talk to me. They're like, oh, no one ever believes in me. And they described exactly what my brother Mark saw. I'm like, I knew my brother wasn't lying. And I was pretty sure he wasn't misperceiving. And I was kind of running out of options. And I started asking other people. And boy, did I get a shock. It was such bad news. A lot of people I knew had not only seen UFOs, but had really close encounters, missing time, ET encounters.
Yeah.
And for that matter, a wide variety of paranormal. That took a little longer to trickle out. But good 25%.
Would you call your life almost the chronicles of a reluctant paranormal investigator?
Yeah, I got into this field kicking and screaming. Yeah. I did not want to, but I couldn't let it go. Because I don't know why. I know I've never had any UFO sightings growing up, missing time or anything, not that I'm aware of. But I just couldn't let it go.
Yeah, there's just something there that just, I think it's all of us, though, Doug included. I mean, all of us here in this conversation. I mean, there's just something intriguing about the mystery as well as everything else behind it, but also the people behind it, because they're so passionate about what they've seen and what they've experienced that you can't turn a blind eye to it. And it's just so many of them, like you'd said, just so many people.
Were your parents, Preston, interested in UFOs at all?
No, God, no.
There was no interest.
No. My mom had passed away, just a few years earlier before I got involved. So I never really got to ask her. But she, expressed her skepticism. My dad never would even look at it. To the day he died, he wouldn't touch one of my books. No, did not want to hear it. Just wasn't interested.
That's.
Yeah,
it's just weird that think about it. You've written 27 books on the topic.
Yep.
That is, that's a huge amount of work. And have you ever had a sighting, Preston, yourself? That's motivated you?
Oh yeah. Not until I started writing about it, actually, which might not be a coincidence. I don't think it is a coincidence, because I was going to see these things. I'm like, all right, if they're real, I want to see them. Mm-hmm. And I started, I joined MUFON right away, Mutual UFO Network. I bought every book I could find. I subscribed to the journals. I started interviewing people, and they're like, oh yeah, I saw it here. It was in, summer. I'm like, all right. This turned out this area not nearby was a pretty active hotspot. I started camping out in the fields, looking for these things. And ultimately, my first sighting came right at me. I wasn't out there looking. I just stayed up late at my brother's talking. This was, let me see, I'm going to say 1992. It could have been 93, but it was late July. I remember that. And I was going crazy trying to deal with this subject. Just, I was having a hard time with it. And so I'd stay over late at my brother and my sister-in-law's, and we'd talk it through. And I'm driving home. This is in Woodland Hills, pretty crowded suburb. I'm coming around this hairpin corner. It's a tiny little side street, so I'm going like maybe 3 miles an hour. And this thing drops out of the sky. And my first thought was it was a bird, but I instantly dismissed it because I saw that it was a ball of light. And I thought, well, a firecracker, because, it's late July. But no. Right? So it clearly wasn't a firecracker, because it came swooping down this arc and stops right in front of my windshield. And it's a ball of light.
Ooh.
So, it's a little ball of light. I'm going to say it's bigger than a golf ball, but smaller than a tennis ball.
Okay.
Somewhere thereabouts. Soft white, hard edges, clearly artificial. And it starts darting back and forth 2, maybe 3 times, and then takes off straight up. I'm like, what the heck? Man, oh man.
So you're driving. Just to reiterate, you're driving. You've been thinking about the subject matter, been talking to your family about it, trying to make heads or tails. You see this object come right to your windshield, not far away, not way up in the sky, but you almost had a eye-to-eye, so to speak, encounter with, for lack of a better term, a UFO, because you don't know exactly what it was, and it was flying. What was your reaction? What was your emotional state after that? Was it vindication, or were you like, aha, they are real, I just had my own encounter now? Or was it more fear, or maybe trepidation, or what was your mind state at? Where was your head at after that?
Well, this is going to sound weird. I have to tell you, this is where it starts to get a little weird, because I've had other sightings, and it's very exciting, and I think about it when I go to bed, and I tell everybody, I'm like, wow, you'll not believe what I've seen. On this occasion, that's not what happened at all. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember driving home that night. I should have turned around. I would have. I know I would have. But I didn't. Because, if I just left their house, I was less than 3 minutes away. I would have turned around. I'm like, you are not going to believe it. But instead, it took me a while to realize this. I think I may have had missing time. I can't prove that, but what I can tell you is I didn't even think about it for a couple of months, maybe longer. And then suddenly one day, I don't know what caused me to remember, but I just suddenly remembered. I'm like, hey, oh my God, why didn't I talk about this? Why wasn't I thinking about this? And at that point, I had interviewed enough people to know what was going on. This is a factor, amnesia. This happens not only in onboard encounters, but with simple sightings. And it happened to me.
Jeez. Go ahead, Doug. Sorry about that.
Well, I'm just curious. Obviously, orbs are a huge part of the UFO sightings that people have. I've seen them. I'm not talking, stars or anything, but I'm talking solid looking balls of light the size of basketballs to softballs that are glowing, that seem intelligent. The last ones me and Yvette saw were pink. Other cars that pulled over to look at them. But what are they? Are they some kind of drones from another planet? Have you formed any opinions? Are they the extraterrestrials themselves?
Yeah, I've certainly looked into this for sure, because I saw this tiny little ball of light, an orb. A lot of people, certainly the ones I interviewed, describe your classic flying saucer, or, a cylindrical craft, spherical, all these different shapes. So what are these little balls of light? Well, they're having investigated ghosts and spirits as well. We see the same thing with them. And that can be an entity in a haunted house. You can have a ball of light come up to your bed and boom, it lengthens, it widens, and it's a person. And this happens with the ETs as well. Same thing. However, I think that some of these are probably, what you said, probes, drones.
Yeah.
Sending down to take a little look-see before they scoop you up, perhaps, or...
It's just... Yeah, and of course there could be 100 explanations, like you said. They could be this, could be that. Isn't that one of your biggest challenges as being a UFO investigator? Is all the different possibilities for any one craft or any one sighting? It's kind of endless if you think about it. Yeah,
it is certainly challenging, but I do think we're slowly getting a handle on things. I think we do have a very good idea what UFO phenomena is. It's aliens. I mean, it's extraterrestrials. We pretty much know this. I mean, that's what the evidence is showing us. But sure is puzzling. I talked about the shapes of the craft, and it goes on from there. I mean, they have got every shape in the book. Our cars, our own vehicles, roughly fall into the same shape.
Yeah.
Planes, cars, boats. They have much more variety, I would say.
They're all over the map. You're right. They really are.
Did you take your sighting as kind of a message? Like maybe they came to you to say, hey, you're on the right track, or we want you to look into this. Or do you think it was
a warning, Doug? Or a warning, Doug?
Yeah, God, I hope not.
Yeah, well, I thought about it. And I started looking into it. I'm like, gosh, could this be because I'm investigating?
Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Bears beats The Office on Peacock. Stream every moment from Dunder Mifflin and explore bonus extras and exclusives. Plus, if you're looking for more classic hits, you can stream every episode of Parks and Recreation, 2.5 Men, and every season of SNL. In the mood for something brand new? Check out Peacock's original comedies, The Amber Ruffin Show, and Saved by the Bell. Whether you're craving a new binge or familiar fave, you can find tons of comedy hits on Peacock. Get started for free at peacocktv.com.
Are you a gig worker or self-employed? Womply has helped over 100,000 small businesses get a PPP loan. You may qualify for up to $41,000 in 100% forgivable loans. The program ends soon and funds are limited. Apply now at womply.com/apply. That's WOMPLY.com/apply.
Them.
Right.
And I think so, because that is a pattern. People who investigate this subject intensely will find themselves, I think, the object of investigation.
Really?
I wrote about it. I looked up a bunch of researchers, and most of the major researchers have had sightings, and some of them were pulled into this field by a sighting, and others had it come to them afterwards.
Yeah.
But there does seem to be a link up there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100% with that. That it does seem for instance, when I was producing Monster Quest, our car got dived by some, I don't know if it was a UFO, but it was something with wings, and it dropped straight down out of the sky and came right at my windshield. It swooped over the top of the windshield. There was no owl. I mean, the wings were as wide as the car, but I'm thinking, okay, so I'm the Monster Quest guy, and I just see this thing drop out of the sky. I can't tell anybody that. But I wondered, was it because I was producing that show that caused me to see it? I don't think it certainly wasn't imaginary because we both saw it. So it's similar to what, happened to you as a UFO investigator.
Yeah, this universe is very strange, isn't it? There's a little bit of a biofeedback, sort of a matrixy aspect to it, where you can draw stuff to you. I do think that's what's going on. Yeah, Mothman, Owlman, there's all kinds of weird humanoids. And that's another thing that really makes me scratch my head.
Well, when you see something with your own eyes, I mean, it's great, because I remember being all skeptical about this and that, and even very, very skeptical of alien abduction. But then if you somehow try to at least empathize with people, and you realize there's nothing to gain by making up such a story. It's the opposite. I was embarrassed just even to mention what we saw, because so many people are rolling their eyes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the number of hoaxes I think is far, far smaller than people realize, because hoaxers soon realize that they've made a mistake. Often people aren't interested, for one, and they'll look at you like you're crazy. And I almost never run into what I would, conclude to be hoaxing people.
Yeah. I want to hear about your new book, Onboard UFO Encounters. Can you tell us about your new book?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got 15 chapters, and each one focuses on a person who's been actually taken on board a UFO. So that's kind of the theme, and I'm super excited about it because these are all my own cases. I've written books about various states, UFOs over California, New York, a bunch of Midwestern states, and that draws on a lot of research. But these are all my own. These are all people, I was able to interview extensively, and they've all had face-to-face encounters. They've all gotten to talk to ETs. They know what it's like to be on board a UFO. So that's what this whole book is about.
So, Preston, you talked to all these witnesses that have been abducted. Is there... Okay, you're abducted. They have you. What's the most common thing that happens to somebody after that? I mean, is there something that crossed over between all of them that was similar beyond just being taken?
Yeah, absolutely. There are commonalities. I think I've certainly interviewed enough people that when someone says, "Oh, I've been on board a UFO," I'm like, all right. I can predict to a certain extent what they're going to say. Quite a bit of it. Each case is unique. Each person is unique, so there are unique aspects. But by and large, people will describe almost always being physically examined. That's very common. Very common is describing rounded rooms where the walls kind of curve into the floor and the ceiling. Also, pretty much universal is no one ever describes a chandelier or a light bulb. These objects are lit from within in some way that people cannot describe. It's indirect lighting. It's ambient lighting. Sometimes it hurts the eyes, but it's usually described as sort of a soft lighting. Mm-hmm. Walls are usually white, sometimes pastel colors. Very aesthetic, pleasing kind of to the eye. Low, narrow benches, people describe the same. They're I could barely sit on it. Often people describe being put into a dental chair. That I don't think that's super well known either. People assume, it's going to be a table. But no, as often as not, it's some sort of a chair with little knobs and doohickeys on it, and a helmet perhaps. So there are commonalities.
What do you assume, maybe, or what do you think? I guess maybe that. What are they looking for in the examination? These aliens, when they do take somebody, I mean, they've had to examine thousands of humans by now. So is it anatomy they're after, or is it DNA? What do you think that they're after in the examination?
Yeah, that's a good point people have raised. Like, well, how many people do they need to abduct? I mean, seriously, before you got what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that points towards an ongoing program, perhaps a monitoring program. They are looking for DNA. I think that this is something that we've pretty much established. One of the first cases I got was sort of the hybrid baby case, the missing fetus syndrome. And this is pretty wild to a skeptic. Alien babies, half alien babies. I know how that sounds. I just cringe when I have to deal with the skeptic. I'm like, all right, but the problem is these are the stories we're stuck with. This is definitely a primary ET agenda. They're collecting our genetic material from men and women. That is something they're very interested in, and they do seem to be tracking families. So that's why I think we've got an ongoing program here, because if you're experiencing onboard UFO encounters, the chances are your parents have, and your grandparents. And this is absolutely what we do see. It goes back, way back.
Generational,
way back.
almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there was abductions back in the 1930s, before then, and thousands of years ago? Or do you think this is a phenomenon that we brought on ourselves by broadcasting TV signals, and radio signals out into the universe as a calling card?
Yeah, I really wonder about this, because if you dig through, historical documents, and yeah, there's an increase in literacy in modern times. In ancient times, not a lot of people could read and write. But what we don't have are modern day abduction accounts, pretty much at all. Historically speaking, there is nothing like what's going on now since 1950s, 60s, 70s, where we have large numbers of people reporting missing time, being taken on board. There are interesting parallels with perhaps religious miracles, or the fairy lore in Ireland, and a lot of supernatural creatures, throughout history. But they don't really quite seem to match up to what we're looking at today.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, yes, this probably was going on. It was covert and probably misinterpreted, and a lot of it was never recorded. But I don't know. I'm thinking this could be historically unprecedented in terms of the large numbers of people who are being taken, because we don't have anything to back it up historically.
Yeah, is it going up?
Yeah, I think it is. I do. I think there's a lot of people having this experience. Early on in my research, I read a quote from J. Allen Hynek. Hynek, of course, is Project Blue Book guy, who's lead astronomer for the Air Force, and he said 1 in 40 people have had an onboard experience. And I'm like, wow, oh my God, that means I know somebody who's been on board a UFO. And that's what really kicked me into gear, saying, I'm going to ask everybody. And I didn't have to ask 40 people before I found like 5. So I started surveying the literature, and people like Bud Hopkins and Jacques Vallée and anyone I could get my hands on, and like, how common is this? How common is onboard experiences? And I wrote an article for the MUFON Journal saying 1 in 40 people may have had this experience, and here's why. Because then I'm quoting Jacques Vallée and all the researchers who's saying, this could be a lot more common. And it was 1 year later, the Roper organization, which is a polling organization, put out a poll, asked 1,000 people. I forget how many it was, but it was a a sizable number. And there were little questions hidden in there to detect if a person fit the profile of an abductee, an experiencer. And they found 1 in 50. So, yeah,
so
this
weren't
is
far off.
Yeah, this is a slowly escalating phenomenon, as far as I can tell.
Talking 40 million people.
Yeah, millions upon millions of people.
Jeez.
So.
Well, Preston, I can ask, 10 people, and about 5 of those people will all have some kind of weird experience, kind of like with missing time or waking up in the basement one day, or, just kind of weird stories. They won't necessarily have any memories of, being abducted. But it's amazing how many people are out there that have experienced weird missing time, or, finding themselves driving, and then all of a sudden they're at their destination 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours late. I mean, to me, it's about 1 out of 10 that I can find. Just regular people, because I do ask everybody. Is that what you're finding too?
Well, I wonder. I'm perhaps not quite that high in terms of unexplained experience. Yeah, I think it's even more, because if you leave your question open-ended, have you ever had anything unexplained happen to you? You will get a lot more positive answers. But the thing is, missing time can be seamless. People don't even know, and people have a tendency, especially if you're a skeptic, to write things off. I did it myself. It's easy to deny something you don't believe in.
Sure.
So probably a lot of people have had this experience and never even considered it. It's like, it's a dream.
Yeah, you hear the stories about people, in cars, and they'll come back too, from the abduction, and like if it's a guy and a girl and the guy was driving, all of a sudden the woman will be in the driver's seat and the guy will be in the passengers. Little things that they get wrong when they do.
That's
when they put the
a
people
big
back.
thing too. Yeah, I wonder is that a mistake or is that a calling card? Are they doing this on purpose to sort of let people know? And I think leaning towards that, sometimes it's clearly a mistake. They dress people in the wrong clothes. And one guy I interviewed, he's driving down the 5 freeway in Central Valley, California, in the middle of the night with his friend, and they come upon this bright light in the road. Turns out he's into UFOs. He's read a number of books. He's pretty excited, always wanted to see a UFO and walk up to it and knock on the door. And as they get closer and closer to this thing, they realize it's not a helicopter. It's not a crop dusting helicopter, because I kept thinking maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
They pull up alongside it, and this darn thing is a UFO. It's got very vivid colored lights swirling all over it, fog surrounding it. It's silent, and it sends down a beam of light. And he's scared at this point. He's like, oh my gosh, I always wanted to see a UFO, but now I've changed my mind.
Yeah, no, man, I don't want to deal with it. Yeah.
And so they're racing past it, and he's like, oh no, that beam of light is coming for our car. It's going to hit us. And bam, it hits their car, and next thing they know, they're farther along the highway. It's gone, and he's not driving anymore. His friend is. And, the guy named Keith. He won't get in the car unless he can drive. He's, paranoid of being a passenger. He won't do it. And but now he finds himself a passenger. Poor guy. It was very traumatic. He ended up, and this is something I see, people are transformed. He quit his job. He left his girlfriend. He moved to Hawaii, sold everything, and became sort of a prepper, prepping for, I guess, an apocalyptic type event.
God, it must have must have caused a bunch of trauma on him to change everything, his life. It had been that traumatic, it scared him that bad that he had it changed entirely who he was and wanted to prepare for what might be.
Yep, his friend would never talk about it, and he did have another memory. He remembered getting out of the car and being pulled into this thing. Barely, he just has a vague memory of it. But never sought hypnosis. Most people don't. Regressive hypnosis, you can use to uncover memories, and it's very effective, and it's absolutely valid. We've proven this. But most people are like, no, I don't think so. Don't want to know.
Do you wish more would do the hypnosis? I mean, as a researcher?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, it's totally the person's choice. I'm like wondering myself, do I want to do it? Because I'm looking back at what happened to me. But yeah, sometimes I'll have a really good case involving missing time, and I'm like, I could probably set up an appointment for you if you're interested in something like that. And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, darn it. Because most people don't remember. Some do. In fact, this book, Onboard UFO Encounters, there was one person who used hypnosis. Only one. These are all conscious encounters. A lot of people, they remember.
Really?
Do you think they let them remember? Or do you think just it didn't, the brainwashing or whatever didn't go right?
Yeah, it didn't stick. I'm not sure. I am not honestly sure. I think sometimes if a person has very strong willpower, for example, one of my first interviews was a lady from work, actually, who had been visited by Greys. And she says it was very scary. They appeared in her bedroom, and they were very scary looking. She had a hard time looking at them, but she described, your typical Grey. And they took her. They said, well, you need to come with us. And she's like, no, I can't go with you. I have a job. What are you talking about? I have a family. And they said, you need to come with us. And don't worry, you won't remember. And she says, I will remember. And she was physically examined. They're like, we're going to cut your arm. And she said, no. But they did. And they said, we need to do, an operation with your brain. And that really upset me.
Gosh. It's almost better not remembering, Preston.
I mean, this is right out of a nightmare. Think about the fear. If you saw some little thing, some little creatures in your bedroom at night in the dark, I can't think of anything scarier. Can you, Dennett?
No, I mean, that was, for her, certainly very, very scary.
Yeah.
But she woke up the next morning and there was a scar in her arm, and they would come back and they would ask her all these questions. And it was always at the end of each conversation, you won't remember. She says, oh, yeah, I will. But she remembered everything.
That's scary.
They said, don't tell your dad. She says, I'm telling my dad as soon as you leave. So,
well, how do you explain? I had a friend of mine that came to me, and he said that good friends of his had woken up where he had her pajamas on, and vice versa. And they're literally in therapy, he said. They're going to therapy because it really completely messed up their whole life.
Yeah, this can be very traumatic for people. It's not always traumatic, by the way. There's a bell curve. There are people who are just horrified, and they feel very violated. And there are people who are like, I am absolutely blessed that they visited me. They healed me. I've got 300 documented cases. People have been healed. I don't think they're trying to hurt people. I don't think they're trying to scare people. I really, really don't. I got into this field very upset. I'm like, oh, they're kidnapping and performing horrible experiments on people. This is very bad news for humanity. This is a parasitic race. They're stealing our DNA. They're taking our resources. I don't like this. And as I dug in and continued collecting cases, I started to flip-flop. I'm like, hey, it's not so bad. This person was healed. They really liked them. Hey, this person got a tour. They were taken on a tour of the solar system. No kidding.
Wow. So I mean, it's not always bad. Like you said, some people really enjoyed it. Others not so much. But also at the end of the day, what gives them the right to do this, period? I kind of agree with both sides of it. The one camp says they don't have a right to do this. They shouldn't be doing this. We're not giving them that permission. The other camp is, well, just let them do it. Let them do what they need to do. And because at the end of the day, they're not really hurting anybody.
Yeah, they're not trying to hurt you. People do come away with medical injuries. They do have medical problems. Many people, like I said, are healed. But if a person is not scared out of their mind and can actually have the presence of mind to converse with these people, they are treated differently. And this is universal. Over and over again, people are taken to the engine room. That is not uncommon. 5 cases in the book out of 15 that happened. Some sat in the chair. Some were taught how to fly the craft. They are given messages, usually like, why are you messing around with the nuclear power? Or you guys are very warlike. You really need to work on your warlike ways and aggression. Or warnings of climate change, pollution, these sort of things. That's very common. Also being given messages about spirituality in some capacity. People come away from these experiences very interested in Reiki or hands-on healing or channeling or giving psychic readings or environmentalism or saving animals or dowsing or out-of-body experiences, past life. It's across the board. They wake people up spiritually in a way that is really encouraging. This is why I'm like, hey, ultimately, overall, generally speaking, I don't think this is a bad phenomena, and they behave better than humans. I have to give them that. If a human is kidnapped by another human, it's almost never ends well. Whereas if you're kidnapped by ETs, they examine you. This can be scary. They may heal you, and if they may give you messages, they almost always, as far as we can tell, put you back. Not always.
Preston, can you give us some examples of healing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are many cases. Here's a famous case, which is very well known in the literature, where 2 police officers were driving along, and one of them had a cut on his finger. He had been bit by his son's baby pet alligator and had a wound on his finger. And so they're driving along. This is in Damon, Texas, 1956, I believe. And this very large, kind of blimp-shaped object is next to them in the field, hovering low overhead, and sends down a beam of light which strikes their cruiser. Now, Deputy Good has his arm hanging out. He's the one with the cut. It strikes them, and they can feel this beam. They can actually physically feel it. It's warm and tingling, and that terrifies them. They drive off very quickly until they're out of sight, and they pull into a diner and run inside and start talking about what they saw. And that's when Deputy Good noticed his finger wasn't hurting, and he pulls off the bandage, and the cut was healed. It was like not even there. So that's remarkable, and there's a lot of cases of flesh wounds being healed.
I'm sorry, Preston, but is there any cases of people being cured of, let's just say, terminal diseases, cancer, stuff like that, when they're taken up?
Yep. I've got 300 documented cases, and I have to tell you, there's a lot of illnesses and diseases, but it's across the board. It's not only injuries of all kinds, which can be very minor, but minor illnesses like colds or, a minor infection, or 20 cases involving the eyes. A lot of people cured of back problems, people cured of liver disease, kidney stones, people cured of diabetes, people cured of rheumatism, 30-some cases involving cancer, lots of tumor cases. It is just astonishing. Polio, diphtheria, really, it's amazing. And some are very well documented.
Did these people, specifically ask to be cured, or do you think they were just chosen to have it done to them?
Yeah, I looked into this real hard, and I got some very interesting answers, I think. I'm like, who's being healed and why? Because it's evenly divided between men and women, almost perfectly evenly divided. And it's all over the world. It stretches back 100 years. It's got no bearing on blood type, no bearing on education, or really anything I could find for the longest time. I'm like, what is going on? There's got to be a reason some people are getting healed. And I found that about half, and this is kind of a rough estimate, but about half do have a history of encounters. They are the ones whose families are being traced and tracked and followed. So if you have a history of this, that increases your chances. But the other 50%, no. Some are friends of contactees. And what I found was that those who are doing good work for humanity in some capacity, it's an astonishing thing. It was your profession. Social workers, doctors, teachers, police officers, inventors, artists, entertainers. And it's a loose pattern, but I can't tell you how many social workers and human rights activists and people, that is for sure a thing. And to go back to the other part of your question, can you ask for healing and receive it? Out of the 300 some cases, it's statistically almost insignificant, but there are 20 some cases where it does happen. People will ask for it. They'll pray. And these people do not have a history of encounters. One lady was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she's, of course, very upset and is going to have operations. And she and her husband are lying in bed crying, and praying, like, please, what are we going to do? And she fell asleep praying and wakes up, and took her a bit to realize what was going on, because she didn't, she knew about grays at this point. We pretty much all do. But it took her a second to recognize that these were gray ETs surrounding her, and she was on a table in a rounded room. She's like, what's happening? And it was all very quick, what she remembered, that they were examining her and doing something to her. And she woke up, and she's like, honey, I had the strangest, I don't know if it was even a dream. And went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, I don't know how to explain this, but we don't find any trace of your cancer. It's gone.
Gosh, it's amazing.
And that's a typical sort of someone who prayed and got an answer.
Dr. Jacobs, I'm sure you've met him many times, but he had a theory that if you're seeing a lot of UFOs, you're seeing a lot of orbs, and you're probably being abducted, was his theory, based on, his work. Do you kind of agree with that too, or?
Yeah.
Only people are seeing UFOs that are being abducted. The other people just never see them.
Well, I'm not sure I would go that far, but if you have seen more than one UFO, if you've seen like 3 UFOs, that's a red flag. And the one question I always ask, I'm like, all right, how close was it to you? Was this something you saw way up in the sky with a group of people, or was this something that followed your car or hovered over your house, or how close? And if it's within 1,000 feet, oh, that's a red flag. If it's within a couple of 100 feet, I'm like, gotcha. This is, and I don't tell people that because this is a delicate business, interviewing someone and letting them know, like, how am I going to tell this person they have had missing time? I was interviewing one guy, he hadn't realized he had missing time. And I kept circling around it. I'm like, okay, but you got home later? How many hours do you think it was? And then I'm finally like, well, what do you think happened during that missing time? Poor guy started shaking and crying. And I'm like, oh, God, I went too far. But I think people need to know the truth. So I've learned to be delicate about it.
I would imagine. Is there more than one species of alien, though? You talk about the Greys a lot, but is there anything? Well, what's up with these reptilians? Are they out there? And if so, what are they doing? And I guess, how do the other species fit into this?
Yeah, of course there's other species. And people say Greys. I get mostly Greys, by the way. 50, 60%, maybe even more. But it's a wide variety. There's little tiny ones. There's ones that are, 4 feet tall. There's ones that are 3 feet tall. There's ones that are 5 feet tall. Some are kind of cold and emotionless and maybe not so compassionate. And others are very loving. And there's tall whites, 6, 7, 8 feet tall. And these are all what we would call or describe as gray.
Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Stream classic sitcoms like The Office, Parks and Recreation, and 2.5 Men. Plus, catch Peacock original comedies like AP Bio and Saved by the Bell. For all your exclusive comedy faves, go to peacocktv.com and get started.
Are you a gig worker or self-employed? Womply has helped over 100,000 small businesses get a PPP loan. You may qualify for up to $41,000 in 100% forgivable loans. The program ends soon and funds are limited. Apply now at womply.com/apply. That's WOMPLY.com/apply.
And people are like, well, I don't know why they call them gray, because mine were tan. Oh, mine were kind of yellowish, or mine looked almost, had a human tone to their skin even. So grays mostly, but there are different species, I'm guessing, or at least, we'll look at the variation on Earth. Maybe they are the same species.
Do you think all of these different species have a different goal?
Yeah, I think there's multiple agendas. There's human-looking ETs, ones that look just like us. We have praying mantis type mantids. That's very strange to me, because why praying mantis? Why not giraffe or horse or anything? Ladybug. That's just strange to me. But this is what we're reporting, and those are the three main types: grays, human-looking, and praying mantis. And then the fourth category would be sort of a catch-all. Reptilian, I do get, but not hardly in the same numbers, and often no UFOs there. I'm wondering if they're even, flying around UFOs, because a lot of them don't have that. They may be coming from Earth, but I do think they have different agendas. The Greys certainly have a very pronounced agenda with the hybrid babies, and we don't see that in others. But multiple, they all have one agenda, and that is to let people know we're destroying our planet. That is the number one message, whether you're talking about the contactee age of the 1950s, or the Greys, or human-looking ETs, or any. They all have that message. There are so many agendas. They're hovering over our minds and taking our metal. No kidding. I knew a famous case in California over a gold mine, and another over a titanium mine. I'm like, well, let's look into this.
Yeah.
And so I looked at all my books, and I've got 100, 200. I've got all newspaper articles. I have dug in to really see what's out there. And I found like many dozens of cases where they're not only hovering over mines, they're landing. There are humanoids being seen. They are affecting the mines. They are taking our metal. Absolutely. Our resources. So that to me is definitely an agenda.
That's a little strange. You would think that other planets would have the same minerals as Earth, unless gold and platinum and titanium are all unique to this planet.
We are metal rich. We know that.
Yeah.
In terms of other planets in our solar system.
Any indication where they're from? Do they ever tell the abductees where they're from?
Yeah, we do have some indication. There's a lot of talk about this. Could they be time travelers from the future? Well, I could march out a number of cases that support that. I really can. The ETs have said that directly. I could march out some cases which would point towards them being interdimensional. But we are interdimensional too. I think we're pretty clear we're dealing with biological beings like us from other planets. And when people ask, well, where? You often get a very coy answer, like, oh, it's not important. Another said, you wouldn't understand. Another said, we're from a place you don't know about yet. Well, duh. But some do get answers. Certainly, Betty and Barney Hill, and their star map pointed towards Zeta Reticula, and that turns up in a smattering of cases. So I'm going to point to Zeta Reticula. I'm also going to point towards Orion. That's been mentioned, as well as the Andromeda Galaxy, which kind of irks me because I'm like, what, an entire galaxy? Well, can you narrow it down?
Yeah, it's a little big.
One guy I talked to, he was like, where are you from? And they showed him a star chart. And a little red star started blinking. And they're like, that's our star. And it's called that. He couldn't remember. He said it was too many syllables, and I have no idea. I made him try, and that's what he said. They will tell you.
Didn't Betty describe amniocentesis test before it was even invented? That they had put this the long needle through her navel and drawn out fluid.
Yeah. Before it was in widespread use. I believe it had been done.
It had been invented, okay.
But she had no idea what an amniocentesis was, and she was essentially describing the exact same thing. And we see this over and over again. One guy who was cured of kidney stones. It's a really interesting case, which came from researcher Constance Clear. He described to her how it happened in this instrument. And she's like, can you draw it? And he drew the whole thing. And she took that drawing to a medical professional. And he's like, oh, I know what that is. That's what is it called? A lithograph, something, lithography.
Yeah. I'm unfortunate enough to have had kidney stones in my life, so I know exactly what procedure it is. Laparoscopy, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So he drew the instrument that the ETs used. It's funny, the ETs were examining him, and they were like, what are those stones in your kidney? Is that to help you? And he said, no, actually, that hurts me. They will hurt me if you keep them in there. And I'm like, oh, well, we'll take them out next time. And they did.
Jeez. What's the most painful, creepy thing that happened to somebody who was taken aboard? Have you heard one that's just horrid sounding? I've heard stories where they've taken out people's eyes, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yep, I've heard that. That Betty Andreasen described that. So the guy named Eddie, they pulled out his eye and fixed his color blindness and put it back. By the way, human doctors will take out people's eyes to cure detached retina. That happened to my mother.
Oh, gee.
So yeah, there are creepy, awful cases. I don't get a lot personally, and but certainly the worst I will get would be people describe painful procedures, a needle going in the head, and the ETs don't seem to care, and they're treating them like a lab rat. Very bad bedside manner, and sometimes painful examinations. That's the worst I personally have gotten. Though I did hear a case where a guy was taken on board. A couple of cases, actually. This happened in at least 2 cases I know where they were given what amounts to a pain threshold test.
Oh, boy, that'd be great.
Yeah, fun stuff. They were screaming, and the ETs, this was their impression, I should say, that the ETs were, increasing their pain to the threshold where, see how much they could take. Boy, that's awful.
Never heard that one.
But that's the worst I've heard, and I don't get that. I don't get any accounts of sadism or torture.
But who makes that up, Preston? Nobody's going to make up a story like that. It's just
No, but I don't think it's sadistic. I don't think they're doing it to hurt you. To really, you know what I mean, to purposely get pleasure from your pain.
Right. So they're just scientifically going about their business. But like you said, their bedside manner is not good. They're not giving people pills so they don't feel pain.
Because what we have is different ETs. We have some people are contacted by tourists. They're just there to say hello, and it's a very nice encounter. Others are contacted by what amounts to doctors, who are in an emergency situation. Their race is dying. The Greys are having some real problems. This has come out from multiple sources, many I've interviewed and many I've read about from other researchers. The Greys are saying the same thing when people ask, why are you doing this?
I mean, I've taken in some just terrifying, through my radio show, my other radio show, just some terrifying encounters. One individual wrote into the show saying his wife was his wife. They took his wife away and they dropped something else in her place. It was not his wife. He knows his wife. It's not his wife. And, he doesn't know what happened to her, but that's not her. They tried their best to make a near clone of this person, but was not her. And then 2 months later, she comes back. And they take whatever it was that they dropped in her place away. So stuff like that. I mean, will they do that? Will they take someone long-term and drop... Have you ever heard that before? And drop a facsimile of that person in their place?
I don't have a case like that, but Artie Six Killer Clark, one of my favorite new researchers. She's put out 3 books. She's interviewing people all over the world, indigenous people usually. And she had a case like that, where a kid was taken on board and met himself, his own clone.
Jeez, that'd be so odd.
And ETs do seem to have a thing for twins. There's a high incidence of twins among the experiencer population. And I run into that myself. One lady, she was pregnant with twins and mysteriously lost one in utero. The doctors were freaking out. They could not believe this happened and said, your chances of carrying this other baby are 1 in 5 million. But she had the baby, and I met him. He's got big eyes and white hair and super psychic, and he starts talking about seeing angels and his brother Michael. And his mother hadn't even told him he had a brother, and he says he's seeing him.
What do you make of it though? When I've heard this too, that they'll get aliens will show up to graves, and people invoke the name of a religious, fill in the religious deity here, and it seems to drive them away.
Oh, I've looked into this. I just did a big study on UFOs and Jesus and encounters which have religious elements. And that's one of them. And there are a few cases where that has happened. I have one personally. A gentleman was having lifelong experiences with grays. He doesn't like it. He's deeply religious and became increasingly religious over the years. He's now pretty elderly, but came convinced that grays are essentially demonic. And but he's describing really the same thing everyone else is describing. And had an experience where he was taken on board. This was fully conscious, and he's like, God is with me as he's getting through it, right? And at some point during his experience, he says the Archangel Michael appeared and said, wake up, get up, and come with me, and escort him off the craft with angels by his side and angels surrounding the UFO. I'm like, Ramon, are you kidding me? He's like, no, this is for real. I'm telling you the truth. And he's a very sincere guy, a really good guy. I mean, he's got a good record, a big family who supports him. They've all seen stuff. He helped, workers get their, Latino workers doubled their pay by sort of organizing a union. He's a good guy. He's not going to lie.
Yeah.
Is my point. And so I am not sure what's going on here. Some people have said, oh, that's just a screen memory, And I'm like, well, that could very well be, but I'm not going to make that judgment call because I don't know. And having looked into the whole phenomena of angels, and for that matter, demons, I'm like, wow, there's compelling evidence for angels. No kidding. And as far as demons, yeah, there are bad spirits out there. There are bad hauntings. I have done firsthand cases into, what I would call demonic haunting. So I'm not sure how effective that is, though, because a lot of people, are praying, and they're not getting, Jesus isn't coming for them.
Yeah.
And Ann Druffel wrote a book, How to Resist UFO Abductions. And one is, that, appealing to religious personages. And she only had one case. And it was kind of like, well, and it turned out to be St. Michael, by the way, who would help this lady, Melissa McLeod. She said she'd get paralyzed and the grays would take her, and she'd call out to St. Michael and it would stop the paralysis.
St. Michael makes a lot of appearances in a lot of cases. That angel gets around to be, add that in there.
So yeah, that might be something. I know this works in hauntings. I knew a guy who was not religious and had this black form trying to possess him, and he called on Jesus and Buddha, and he just started listing them, and it lifted up. So I don't know quite what to make of them. Some cases are very mixed motif. There's a guy in Italy who was visited by an angel, Raphael. And Raphael said to meet him in a field on this day at this time. He went there, and it was a UFO. It was a darn UFO. So it's
They're
very
using his religion to bait him out to the field.
So yeah, very interesting sort of mixed motif cases. Jacques Vallée talked about that with like the miracle of Fatima. Same thing. Was this a religious event? Was this angelic, or was this extraterrestrial? It's not always easy to answer.
Do you ever investigate these mass?
Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Stream classic sitcoms like The Office, Parks and Recreation, and 2.5 Men. Plus, catch Peacock original comedies like AP Bio and Saved by the Bell. For all your exclusive comedy faves, go to peacocktv.com and get started.
God, I don't even know what you'd want to call them. Swarms of UFOs, these small swarms that are seen, similar to that case. I mean, it seems to me it's getting more common because there sure is a lot of videos of people literally with just their cell phones taking photos of these swarms of what look like little orbs or sparkly things. I mean, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, there's all different types of what we would call UFOs, and I think they all get kind of lumped together, and they're not necessarily the same thing.
Right.
We could be dealing with a wide variety of paranormal entities, or what we would label as paranormal, because we don't know what they are. And with the whole drone technology now, and cell phones, and Photoshop, it's muddied the waters intensely. So I stay away, honestly, from photographic evidence unless the witness is willing to back it up and come forward. Because there's stuff swimming all over the internet, and half of it's obviously not real. I mean, you can tell. But some cases, this is kind of an interesting point, and it's maybe tangential a little bit to what you're talking about, but most people will, they see one UFO, maybe two. Often there will be two objects, three even, sometimes 4, 10. Very rarely do I hear more than that, but I do have a few cases involving hundreds of objects, but they describe them as large, flying saucer type craft, not necessarily these little lights, but occasionally, little lights turn up too, and I'm wondering if that's something else.
I don't know. I witnessed something myself once. We were coming in from fishing, and there, at first, when I first looked at it, thought it was a flock of birds, white birds that were flying, because they never stopped moving, Preston. They just kept moving back and forth and kind of, so you're trying to look and you're trying to figure out, what am I looking at? And we did film them. Unfortunately, my phone, the footage I got with mine, which was closer, froze up and became a brick. And Yvette's phone, when she started filming, they were a little farther away, and that footage is fine. But it looked like a bunch of living creatures, but yet not from here. And then I went online and looked, and sure enough, I've now found 2 other videos that's the exact phenomena, but I don't know what it is.
Well, if it's up in the sky, if it's way up there.
This was like they were all over our house. The roof, the trees, the ground, everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Broad daylight, not a cloud in the sky. I don't know what it is because, the footage that Yvette got, they're far enough away, they're over the neighbor's roof, and you can't really tell, but they disappear, they turn white, they turn black, and then they disappear, and then they appear again. But literally, when I find other footage now that's exact to her footage, I know they're not fake because we saw it with our own eyes. You know what I mean? The exact. I mean, it's so exact, it's not funny. I'd love to share those with you.
Yeah. I wonder if sometimes people are catching stuff as they're phasing in or out, because UFOs don't travel like we would think of it. They have, faster than light speed, or subdimensional, interdimensional. They're not traveling through the air necessarily like we would think of it. Sometimes they come through what would be, I guess, a portal.
Yeah. Well, these things look like they were alive, not like they were craft, if that makes sense.
Creatures.
They were creatures, but not around here. You know, they weren't seagulls because they didn't have wings. They weren't other birds because they just, once again, they don't have wings, and birds can't disappear completely and then reappear and change color. But so you just wonder, you classify it as a UFO swarm. They were flying, but then I just wonder if you deal with these kind of cases where you don't even know where to classify them.
I have one like that, and I kind of put it on the back burner because this is the first time I'm getting any corroboration for anything like that. One lady described pretty much essentially that, and I kept talking to her because, you have to really sort of come in a testimony from different angles so you're clear what this person is actually seeing.
Okay.
And that's what she was describing. She says they were very low to the ground, and there was hundreds of little lights, and they were darting all around. And she had to say, like fireflies. She says, well, bigger than fireflies, but they weren't fireflies because there aren't fireflies here. For one thing.
This happened in the broad daytime.
Yeah.
So we could see them, but they were giving off some type of light, like a shimmer, sparkle. You know what I mean? But remember, it's probably 3 PM on a summer day, clear blue sky, and so there was a lot of light. But they were amazing. And then it wasn't more than 2 or 3 months, my daughter calls me screaming that her and her boyfriend are watching a swarm of these things right over the gym parking lot.
Wow.
And I'm like,
is anyone else reacting to them when you saw it? Or, I mean,
there was nobody around. Literally, I've got the footage. There was nobody around. I mean, there should have been people everywhere. There was no around on a lake, but it was the middle of the week. But still, there's normally people out.
I was just saying, nice lake, middle of the Twin Cities. I mean,
4-degree day. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have thought there would have been a lot of people out and about.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to do a study of that exact problem because this is a known phenomenon with UFO encounters, the missing traffic syndrome. Lady was on a very busy street when she had her encounter, and suddenly there's no cars. One lady I interviewed, she's 9 months pregnant. Boy, they love coming for people when they're, pregnant or just had their baby. And she says, this amazing thing happened to me. I was on La Cienega Boulevard. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I know exactly where that is. She described it. It's a very busy street. And she says, strangest thing happened, and suddenly there was no cars.
Wow.
No cars. It freaked her out. And then this giant ball of light, the size of a grapefruit, she said, started circling around her car, right around it, in front of the windshield, going around it 3 times, and then darted off. And she watches it go up, and she looks back down at the street, and it was just whoom, all the cars were back.
Right back to reality with all the cars. Yeah, just that moment of her in the light, and then it goes right back to normal. What do you think they're doing when they do that? I mean,
I would, if you've got any ideas, I'd like to know. I'm thinking, I used to think that maybe they're diverting the cars until I heard that case. Because she's like, no, there's no way. It was, and I heard another case where a guy was in front of a busy street, and this thing comes barreling down the street, and all the cars are gone. And it's gone, and the cars are back. So I'm thinking...
What was the term you used, Preston? I love that term. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, missing traffic.
Oh, just missing traffic, yeah. No,
syndrome.
Missing traffic syndrome.
It sounds like a dimensional thing.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm leaning towards. I'm like, maybe because there are other dimensions. We know this through mathematics and quantum physics, through near-death experiences, and people who have out-of-body experiences.
And people have had time slips.
Yeah.
Talk about that, slipping into a different dimension.
Right. So maybe what's happening here is there's a dimension that's layered on Earth, which is essentially the same planet, but there's no... I don't know. It's something that they have the ability to do, and it's one of the ways they remove outside witnesses. They will switch people off. Just people within a large neighborhood. They can stop what looks like stop time. I don't think they're actually stopping time, but they're pulling people out of the time stream because people will describe nothing's moving. Birds are still in the sky. They're sitting there frozen in the sky, and they're moving, and so are the grays. And the cars are stuck on the road, and everything's stock still. So what's going on there?
Yeah. Maybe they mastered bending the time and dimension. I mean, they had to figure something out to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're moving from star system to star system, if they can essentially move faster than light, well, that turns their ships into time machines. Because once you surpass the constant, of light, time sort of starts to collapse. Rate times time equals distance. And this means that they could move through time, or telescope it, or stop it, or, compress it.
Yeah, but doesn't Einstein kind of get in the way? If you're going so fast, you become huge, bigger and bigger and bigger. His theory? Yep.
That's what he always thought. And Einstein apparently didn't have everything right because there was still questions surrounding it. And the fact is, this is what's happening. We're seeing it. We're seeing these objects move at right angles. We're seeing them turn invisible. We are seeing people. One lady I interviewed, she was in a car accident in Georgia, hurt real bad, pushed through the window, just tore up, and was pulled from the scene of the accident into a UFO, and they operated on her. They said, "You died in this accident, and you weren't supposed to. And we will repair you. Your brainstem was severed." And so they did this huge operation on her and took away all the scars on her face. And so they said, "We can't heal all your injuries because some of these are karmic," which I heard in other cases. And I found that. I'm like, oh, okay. Karma, that's interesting. ETs believe in karma. That, to me, was fascinating. And they put her back at the scene of the accident before the first responders got there. And she said the first responders showed up right away. I mean, they knew they did because... And she says the operation itself probably took an hour, so they somehow were able to...
Pause that time.
Pull her out of time, I guess, to a different time stream. And I get case after case like this. One lady, she saw her full-grown hybrid son. He came back to visit her. She had missing pregnancies, and this was he's like, "I'm your son." She's like, "Oh my God, how old are you?" He says, "Well, you would think of me as about 25 in your years, but actually I'm much, much older because I traveled through dimensions." And so
interesting. Wow, Preston, that is crazy. We only got a couple minutes left.
First off, Joel, we have to get him back. We haven't even.
Oh God, yes.
Like soon,
absolutely.
Preston, will you come back soon?
Hey, you got it. I got another book, by the way, coming out in just a couple of months, and
got a million more questions for you. Like how ghosts and UFOs, because I've been on paranormal investigations where the people are being haunted, talk about seeing UFOs. As well.
God.
Yeah. I mean, stuff like that, and just weird synchronicities of and intention. How much does intention play in this? You throw an intention out as an investigator. Is it intention that draws you to him? So,
can you tell us about your new book and what you're working on and where people can get a hold of you?
I do have a website. It's prestondennett.weebly.com. If you just Google my name, it should take you there. But I've got all my books there, excerpts. You can buy my books through my website or on Amazon. You can also contact me if you have a story to share or a question or a comment. Always love hearing from people. Been putting out about 2 books a year now for a number of years. I am gung-ho with this. I mean, I feel it's a very important subject. My next book is going to be very much like Onboard UFO Encounters, about people who've had really intense encounters, but also a few interesting sightings, just really weird stories, a couple of whistleblower accounts. So I'm going a little bit deeper with this next one.
We didn't even get into the government with you. I mean, and their role in this, or cattle mutilation. Like Doug said, a million places to go yet. We'd like to get
Oh, our government. They're neck deep.
Information. So, man, what an interesting hour and a half here. My gosh, thank you so much. Preston Dennett, everybody. You're going to want to check his books on Amazon in the meantime. Read up on it. They're with us. Aliens are here. They're abducting us. And sometimes helping, sometimes not helping. But, man, they're here and they're here to stay, in my opinion. Till next time, guys, take care of each other and love each other. This is Joel and Doug signing off.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock. Whatever you're funny, Peacock's got it exclusively. Stream classic sitcoms like The Office, Parks and Recreation, and 2.5 Men. Plus, catch Peacock original comedies like AP Bio and Saved by the Bell. For all your exclusive comedy faves, go to peacocktv.com and get started.